What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors, along with Sean Hammond. Sean, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's Friday. We got football coming up. Can't complain.
Yeah, it is Friday, October 27th. We are recording this. It is week 8 already, Sean. I can't believe we're 8 weeks into the regular season.
Yeah, man. Once you get into the nitty gritty, these weeks start to fly by, and we're definitely feeling that at this point. We're halfway through. I cannot believe that either. The season's going so fast.
Yeah, absolutely. It always does. We got a lot to get to this morning. Bears heading out to LA to face the Chargers, Sean. Um, First off, I came in there, Jake Barlson working behind the scene. I know you guys were talking about the trip out to LA. You ever been?
Not really. I mean, I went to SoFi a couple of years ago for a game,
Yeah.
but I didn't have a lot of time to spend out there. So I'm looking forward to doing something Saturday night this time around.
I've only been to LA once. My wife and I and her parents, we were in Vegas and we drove to LA. And like we're like it's only like a 3 hour drive, and then so we go there, like go to Malibu and stuff. It rained the entire day, like
Oh
in
no.
southern LA. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, that's just rotten luck. The forecast looks good this weekend, so I'm sure there will be a lot of Bears fans out there. The last time the Bears played out there, that stadium was half Bears fans, and it seems like that's a theme for whichever Los Angeles team is playing at home.
You can follow Sean on Twitter at Sean_Hammond. You can also find him on Instagram. You can find myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. You can find all of our content at Bears_Insider. Go to shawlocal.com for all of our content. Mark Silverman also has a column up there this week. Sean, we're going to dive in right away to the injury report. I see Rick Gonzalez already asking us this morning. Rick, good to have you on, man. This is specifically, I wanted to start with the offensive tackles. We got Braxton Jones with his practice window open, coming off injured reserve. Not sure if he's going to play. The Darnell Wright shoulder injury also has that up in the air. Those are two big question marks we have here on Friday morning still.
Yeah. Clearly, the tackle spots are of a lot of concern, because you're going up against a Chargers defensive front that's got Khalil Mack, who of course we're all very familiar with from his time here in Chicago, and Joey Bosa on the other side. I mean, that's probably the best 1-2 punch the Bears have faced so far this season in terms of at the defensive end spot. And so looking at what's transpired so far this week, I mean, Darnell Wright was playing through that shoulder injury. He was dealing with that last week, played through it on Sunday. I think there were a few times when you could kind of notice that he was, if you go back and watch the tape, where he was favoring his shoulder a little bit, and Matt Eberflus kind of gave him a shout out for gutting through that. But yeah, it's clearly a concern moving forward. He did return to practice yesterday, but it's still, he's got a big wrap on his shoulder. It's still a thing where like he's definitely working through this, and it's not 100% healthy.
Do we know
Having said,
what the shoulder injury is? Did they say?
no, we don't know anything more specific than that. I know it's his left shoulder, but that's all we have really.
I can't
Um,
I can't imagine blocking 280, 300-pound guys with an injured shoulder is much fun.
Your arms really matter at that position,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially the tackle spots. I mean, it matters for every offensive lineman, but you're trying to keep those guys at bay, and you're trying to extend those arms as quickly as you can. That's concerning if you got a shoulder injury at either of those tackle spots. I have a feeling he might gut through this and play again, but that's more going off my feel for the situation and based on him playing last week. But I don't think he's going to be 100% if he plays.
So how about Braxton Jones?
Yeah, so then we go over to the other side at the left tackle spot. Braxton Jones has missed 5 games now with this neck injury. So they opened his practice window this week. He's been a limited participant these first couple days of practice. We'll see where he's at on Friday. We still have to see his we'll see the injury report today. I kind of feel like it's 50-50. I think the bigger thing with him having missed over a month is going to be the conditioning. Is his conditioning level where it needs to be able to play? And I would imagine they want to get him a full day of practice before throwing him out there. I don't, if he's limited again on Friday, I'd be skeptical that he's going to play in this game. If he's a full participant on Friday, I could see him being activated, as early as this weekend.
When they activated Tevin Jenkins a couple weeks ago, didn't they that first game back? He was active. He didn't start though. I think he rotated in, didn't he?
Yeah, they rotated him, and you know what? That's a great point, Kyle. Maybe that's an option here.
Yeah.
You could rotate with Larry Borum at that left tackle spot, and that is something that this Bears staff has liked in terms of like, yeah, getting guys back into game shape. Obviously, it's different when you're conditioning. When you got an injury and you're conditioning on the side, is very different from game shape, and so yeah, maybe that's an option to rotate him in and do it that way.
Yeah, and I think it's weird to say, because like Braxton Jones had a really good rookie season,
Hmm.
and like,
Didn't miss a single
um,
snap of football last year.
yeah, didn't miss a single snap, and like that is his position. But like, I don't think you also have to rush him back. Larry Borum has done what you want from your swing tackle, right? Like he's performed league average. He's actually been above league average in run blocking. He's been great in the run game. So I
Hmm.
don't think there's a reason that you have to rush Braxton Jones back, particularly against a really good pass rushing team. I you know I think a rotation is probably the most likely scenario if he plays at all.
Honestly, maybe that's a good strategy to have when you're going against two really, really good edge rushers in Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Keep your guys fresh, why not rotate Braxton and Larry, especially, if you're worried that Larry might be a little bit overmatched at times in this game, throw in Braxton for a change of pace. You're giving them both a little extra rest, and hopefully they're a little bit more fresh each time they go out there.
You can get Shaw Local's Bears Insider podcast anywhere you get your podcast nowadays. You can also, of course, join us live on YouTube, typically at 9:30 a.m. on Mondays and Fridays during the season. We really appreciate everyone that does join us. If you are watching live, do us a favor, or even watching this later. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, please. We appreciate any of the questions and comments. Helps us know what you guys want to talk about today. Mark says, who else do the Bears have, assuming Braxton and Wright don't play? Well, let's say Larry Borum obviously is one guy.
Hmm.
Who would be that other tackle?
Yeah, so then you're looking, if Darnell doesn't play, you're looking probably at either Aviante Collins or Jatiri Carter, who's mostly played guard, but they've said can play the tackle spot. Collins is a guy that we haven't seen much of. He's kind of just been a backup through this point, but he's an older dude. He's a little bit more experienced. I think he's like 30 or something like that. Been around the block a few times. Could probably play that spot if you need him to, but obviously you'd much rather have those two guys healthy.
All right, so I think we covered the tackle position when it comes to the injury. Who else? We're looking at both Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker as well. Jaquan
Hmm.
Brisker is an illness, right?
Yeah, so Jaquan Brisker is officially listed as an illness. He also seemed to get hurt at the very end of that game on Sunday. I don't know if you remember that play at the goal line where he went down.
No,
So
he tends to go down about 3 times a
he
game, though.
goes down a
So
lot. So who knows?
yeah.
But he's not practiced at all this week. So no, he is very much in doubt for this game. Eddie Jackson has been limited each day, which is an improvement from last week. He sat out most of the week last week. Maybe Eddie's going to be closer to going, good enough to go in this game. I imagine if Jaquan's not playing, you're going to want Eddie out there. You don't want to be down both your safeties, but that's going to depend on Eddie's foot and just how good he is there. Other injury stuff, Nate Davis still been sitting out. Obviously, Justin Fields has been sitting out. I don't expect that to change on
Did I see
Friday.
did I see a report last night that like he's targeting the November 4th game is coming back? I think I'm
I didn't see that in particular, but it wouldn't surprise me. Um, yeah, that's let's see, that's the Saints game next week, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah.
Um, that wouldn't surprise me. I look, they when they don't put a guy on IR, that's for a reason. That's because they think he's going to be back in 2, 3, 4 weeks. And so I think I think that's a natural time to sort of circle that game and say, okay, let's hopefully he's back. After just missing 2 games, and you can get him back for that one. The concern is still the grip strength. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like he's got to be able to grip the football, and they say that there's been progress in that area. We'll kind of see next week if that's the case, and he's able to get back out there. Roshan Johnson told us that he has cleared the concussion protocols. He'll probably get in trouble from Matt Eberflus for saying that, but he told us that, so he's going to be good to go. He's going to play on Sunday. You're going to have him back with Deontay Foreman at the running back spot. So that's good news there. And then that's pretty much it injury wise. Terrell Smith has been out with an illness. He's gonna probably be out for another game or two, I would imagine.
Yeah, mono, right?
Yeah, he's they said he had mono. He was probably going to miss about a month. So I think we got another week or two for him.
Here's my guy, Mike B, saving me here, finding who reported that last night. Jeremy Fowler said that he targeted, that Justin Fields is targeting that November 4th game. Mike also says here, if we can throw that up on the screen, Jake, I appreciate it. There is zero chance Foreman is inactive. So how will the running backs shake out? Personally, I'd like Foreman, Evans, Johnson, and Blasingame with Homer inactive. And if Homer plays, then Velas inactive.
Yeah, I'm just thinking through that here.
Yeah.
Well,
so
yeah.
Essentially, Mike says Travis Homer should not be active. Is what Mike is saying.
Look, if Darrington Evans can play some special team snaps for you, if Roshan Johnson can play some special team snaps for you, you don't necessarily need Travis Homer. We know that Foreman isn't really a special teams guy, but I 100% agree that dude should not be inactive. The way he's been rushing the ball lately, he's going to be your lead back. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he's, even with Roshan back, I would still expect. I mean, Deontay Foreman's earned the right to get touches with what he's done the last couple of weeks. I would think he's going to be your lead guy.
Does this take away touches from Darrington Evans, I wonder?
Probably.
Like,
I would imagine that some of those touches are going to go to Roshan.
Yeah. Who's your third down back? I think that's, because like Darrington Evans has been kind of your third down guy. Roshan, I believe, I could be mistaken on this. I'm pretty sure, though, that the Bears are happy with his pass blocking.
Yeah. Look, just having, from what I saw in training camp, Roshan Johnson's the best pass blocker of all of them. So, yeah, right. I would think from that perspective, you're talking third and long situations, third and medium. I think Roshan's out there. That's just my opinion. But, if it's a short situation, you could throw Deontay Foreman out there and maybe you're going to try to pick up a yard or two that way.
Yeah, Foreman's not a zero in the passing game either. So
he's not. No, I know he had a bad drop early in that game, but he is not. He's not terrible.
Rick's responding to Mike says, I think the problem comes when Herbert returns. Mike, I'm with you. No way Foreman should ever be inactive. Yeah, I think those days are behind us. It is going to be interesting when Khalil Herbert comes back to see how they handle the running back touches, because Khalil Herbert last year was one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL and has continued that this year. I mean, some of your stats and Bear Down Nerd Up through the first month of the season really bear that out, Sean.
Yeah, he's still very efficient. The numbers absolutely say that. It wasn't just a fluke last season. It sucks that he's had to miss this time. But yeah, that's when it's going to get really interesting. What do they do at this running back spot when Herbert gets back? Because all of a sudden it's really crowded. I mean, that's a really good problem to have, of course. If you got a bunch of guys you like, that's a good thing. I would think that's probably going to mean Darrington Evans is going to go back to the practice squad, is my guess. And, how you divvy it up is kind of, there's a million different ways you could do it, but I really can't see Deontay Foreman going back to being inactive. I don't see that happening. I think I mentioned it on our last episode, Kyle. I mean, in my opinion, you got to have Roshan, Deontay Foreman, and Khalil Herbert all active. Like, those guys are too good at the running back spot for you not to have them. If that means you got to make Travis Homer inactive or something, like, figure it out on special teams. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page here. There was someone. Khalil Herbert. That's what I wanted to ask you about. We're talking about a high ankle sprain, right?
Yeah, I believe that's what's been reported.
Yeah, and those, particularly when you come to a running back, like those can be kind of lengthy injuries and fickle. So the Bears have not given us any kind of a timeline on the Herbert injury, have they?
No, he went on IR, so it's going to be at least 4 weeks. He got hurt in that
Right.
Thursday night game in Washington. So you're looking at least 2 more games.
Yeah. So got some time to see how this plays out. I think, we only got a limited look at Roshan, too. I think this is a good opportunity for him with Khalil Herbert out to see exactly where he is.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kyle. It is. Because it's been he's looked good in some of those touches that he's gotten. I think back to that big run against Tampa, and a couple other nice runs that he's had when he gets the ball. He's a physical runner, but he's also got some speed. And yeah, it's hard when you're getting overshadowed by multiple guys. And yeah, maybe this is an opportunity here for him to show what he can do, uh, and maybe earn some snaps down the line when you do have all those guys back.
Shaw Locals Bears Insider podcast is sponsored by Ken Nelson Auto Group, proudly serving the Sauk Valley area for over 55 years. Ken Nelson Auto Group offers 10 new vehicle franchises in one convenient location right here in Dixon, Illinois. Shop a great selection of new and pre-owned vehicles at kennelsonauto.com. He is Sean Hammond. I am Kyle Nabors. Jake Bartleson is working behind the scenes for us this morning. Sean, let's talk Tyson Bagent.
Hmm. Yeah, you know
So
what? It's week 2 of the
we
Tyson Bagent experiment here.
there are a couple of things to kind of frame this discussion, right? Two is the Bears are now playing the Chargers, not the absolutely hapless Raiders.
Yep.
So we can expect that the Bears are going to have to put up some more points in this game. And the other thing is, so far through the beginning of the season, the Chargers have been tremendous against the run and are near the bottom of the league against the pass. So this sets up as a game where Tyson Bagent, game manager, I just don't see that working.
Yeah, the Chargers are a really interesting defense because obviously they have that pass rush, and that aspect is really good when you got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and all those guys. Um, they can get after the quarterback, but the problem is on the back end. They're dead last against the pass, at least in terms of yardage. They're almost dead last in interception rate. So you can exploit this defense moving down the field. They're giving up 8 yards per pass attempt, and that is really bad. Um, then you look at what the Bears got going on. Obviously, we all watched that game last week, and Tyson Bagent was averaging 2 yards per pass attempt. So it's like two very different elements here. Are they going to let him throw the ball downfield a little bit more? Are they going to game plan for him to throw the ball downfield, or are they just going to kind of play it safe like they did last week? I mean, ideally, if you want to go after this Chargers defense, you're going to throw the football downfield. But I don't know if that's exactly what the Bears are going to be thinking here.
Yeah, I don't know how aggressive they're willing to get with Tyson Bagent. And I mean, frankly, Matt Eberflus has not shown so far really a penchant when it comes to game planning. Like he's been aggressive in a few different moments in game, but when it comes to like their game plan coming into stuff, he's been more on the conservative side, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And I personally kind of, this is just my hunch. I feel like they're still going to lean on the conservative side, even though
Yeah.
those numbers say that you can exploit this defense downfield. You still got an undrafted rookie making just his second start. I think they're going to play this a little bit conservatively and try to lean on that run game. The question then becomes, what happens if they fall behind? You got a Chargers offense that's going to score points, and it kind of feels like they're going to have to find a way to keep up.
Rick says over under 5 passes over 20 yards for Bagent this game. Are we talking
Over
completions,
20 yards.
air yards for 20 yards, or are we talking like receptions that are 8-yard receptions that end up going for 20 yards? That's kind of,
I would imagine he's talking about through the air. I would guess that's unless they're really playing from behind. I would guess the Bears want to keep that below that number. Is my hunch.
5 attempts. Yeah, I'm guessing probably under. I don't think that they want to take a chance against this pass rush, and I see this question from Gary in here too, and he says, "Why does just yeah, there you go. Why does Justin have to
Mhm.
have all the pieces around him, but Tyson does it with what we have? And so, like, this is where, like, this kind of ties into like the over or under 5 passes, right? Like,
Mhm.
the Bears put in a specific game plan last week to limit the exposure Tyson Bagent had.
Mhm.
And I just don't see them going away from that after 1 week. It's like it worked. Why go away from that? We won a football game.
Yeah, and look, we mentioned it at the top of this conversation, Kyle. The Raiders were really bad, and like that was. I think Justin Fields would have exploited that defense, as well or better than Tyson Bagent. I think now it's a different animal. You got a totally different team that you're going up against. You're especially if your tackles are injured. There's going to be some concern about that pass rush. Uh, I don't expect them to come out here, gunslinging and tossing the ball around. I mean, they've been really good against the run. And Kyle, I do want to push back. Somebody mentioned in the comments too. I want to push back on what you said about the Chargers being really good against the run. Yeah, their total yardage per game is low, but you look at like what they're giving up per attempt, it's middle of the road. I think it's more a fact that teams are able to throw against them, so they don't necessarily have to run the football as much. So I think the Bears are going to look at this and say we can exploit this defense, with our run game still.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I mean, I do expect that it's not going to be like there's got to be a little progression, right? Like where do you think the
Yeah.
next step for Tyson Bagent is? Like what do they try this game to see, what this kid has?
Yeah, well, at the same time, when I'm saying, I don't expect more than 5 passes, 20 yards downfield, I think, last week's game plan was so conservative, and I think you can push the envelope a little bit. You can have a few more throws over the middle of the field. Even we're just talking 10 yards downfield, 12 yards, 15. Like it doesn't have to be throwing deep balls all the time. I think you can look for them to sort of push it downfield a little bit more. That's maybe one of those areas that they could exploit here. Maybe Cole Kmet gets a little bit more involved.
I just say Cole
Uh,
Kmet was who I was
yeah,
thinking of immediately. I don't think he had a catch last week.
I don't recall offhand, but he certainly didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, maybe that's an area that they can exploit, and test Tyson Bagent a little bit more, because I do think I think that was a great game plan for an undrafted rookie in his first week. But like you said, you got to know what he can do. You want to see, you want to test him a little bit and throw a few more things at him. I think they will do that little by little here as we move forward.
So I'm kind of going through here trying to look through some of our talking points, Sean.
Mhm.
Um, have we talked about the pass rush Chargers? I mean, we hit on it a little bit. You want to dive into that a little bit more about like what exactly we should expect from this Chargers pass rush?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, first time they're seeing Khalil Mack since the Bears traded him almost 2 years ago, right after Ryan Poles took over. Um, as he was with the Bears, he's very much a hot or cold pass rusher. I mean, he had, what did he have, 5 sacks in one game earlier this season,
Yeah.
and that's the large percentage of what he's done. But at least this season I'm talking about. But you got two really good guys. And really that whole defensive line. You got another former Bear, Nick Williams. I don't know if that name rings a bell, Kyle, from
It does.
2019, 2020. He's a good guy coming off the bench at defensive tackle for them. And you got Brandon Staley, a former Bears coach, former Bears assistant coach, is the head coach over there with the Chargers. Um, this is going to be a challenge. I mean, I know Max Crosby was a challenge last week, but he was really kind of on an island on that Raiders defense. He's really the only guy
Yeah.
you're
I'd say
afraid of out there.
it's a lot easier to block Max Crosby when he's really the only guy on the field that you're scared of.
And I don't think that a Khalil Mack is going to be afraid of Larry Borum or Braxton Jones or Darnell Wright. I mean, those are all really young tackles who, especially if Larry Borum is playing. I mean, I imagine Khalil Mack's pretty familiar with him from going against him in practice for a year or two, and that could be trouble for the Bears.
See, Rick says down here maybe a lot of 2 tight end sets with Lewis and Komet helping our injured tackers, helping the injured tackles. The Bears haven't run a lot of 2 tight end sets this year. I don't know if that's going to happen, Rick.
The percentage has gone up as the year's gone on. I think we did see Mercedes Lewis a fair amount last week. I could see that being part of the game plan, certainly, especially if you're concerned about those 2 guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a little extra help in there.
I mean, it certainly makes sense. I'm all in favor of it. I'd like to,
Mhm.
I haven't gone through and looked at snap count for the secondary tight ends to see how that's been trending. I know early in the year you say it's been up. Mercedes Lewis definitely played more last week.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up his numbers actually because I'm curious as we're talking about this, just what his snap count number is looking like as we've moved along here. Give me a second to pull that up.
All right. Well, we bring Jake on for a second. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
Jake,
let's get Jake on here.
Hey, good morning, guys.
What's up, Jake?
What's up, Jake?
Doing pretty good.
What were your thoughts on the Tyson Bagent experience last week?
Very similar to what you guys have been talking about. They kept it simple. They didn't ask him to do too much. Don't make mistakes, and don't let a bad team beat you with mistakes. So I think this week, I think you can see a little bit more aggressiveness, but they're still going to keep the lack of a better term. There's still going to be a little bit of a leash on him. I think the run game is going to be critical. And then see if you can just take your shots with DJ Moore Darnell Mooney downfield and see where you go from there. I mean, I think a lot of this is what you guys have been talking about.
It's been a while since we've had a Darnell Mooney game.
It has. He had a really nice catch last week, but yeah, in terms of just quantity and really being involved, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I would like to see a bigger Cole Kmet game as well. I think, he's going to be pretty important. He's pretty invisible last week. I'd like to see that. But really, I think the bread and butter of this team is going to be with the run game, and then see if you can find your holes with DJ and go from there.
Sean, you still pulling up those numbers?
Yeah, so definitely after week 3, Mercedes Lewis has seen a lot more snaps. He was single digit snaps those first 3 weeks, and since then, I mean, he's been hovering around 30% of offensive snaps, which is a pretty good number for a guy who you don't actually throw the ball to.
Yeah, definitely.
Robert Tonyan sort of similar. He had that injury in week 1, but yeah, he's been around 25 to 30% of snaps as well.
He's been really
in recent
quiet.
weeks. He's been quiet. In terms of pass catching, he hasn't done a whole lot this season, to be honest.
And to be honest, when he was signed, I really kind of thought that they were going to utilize him very similar to how he was in Green Bay, and it just hasn't been that way.
Yeah, I did think that we'd see more passing attempts in his direction. I thought we'd see a lot of kind of vertical routes for Robert Tonyan.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys threw this one up here. Mike Johnson says, I'm looking for more Tyler Scott. I was going to mention that too. I think Tyson Bagent and Tyler Scott probably have a pretty good connection from working together throughout training camp. Those are 2 of the guys who obviously weren't getting a lot of reps with the ones. And so they're working, they spent their whole summer working together. And Tyler Scott, these 2 in particular, Tyler Scott has talked about how he came in at rookie minicamp and was impressed by Tyson Bagent. And, when you got those rookies get together a little bit earlier than everybody else, and that familiarity matters. I think you saw that a couple of times in that game against the Raiders.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. We got about 10 minutes left here, guys, before we sign off. Sean, I want to talk a little bit about the trade deadline since it's coming up next week. We got some guys that are on the block, or I shouldn't say on the block, but guys that are in the final year of their contract that could be, that could be attractive to opposing teams. You hearing anything, or what kind of the feeling right now?
Well, we got to talk to Jalen Johnson again last night, or yesterday afternoon, I should say. And, I with Jalen, I've said numerous times, I think Jalen's clearly if I'm another team, Jalen's the number one guy who other teams are calling the Bears about. And that's not a knock on Darnell Mooney. He just hasn't been as productive and less noticeable out there. And a lot of teams could use a really good corner. A lot of contending teams could want to add value to that spot, improve their cornerback spot as they come down to the home stretch here. And yeah, it's kind of getting to the nitty gritty here, Kyle. We're a couple days away from the trade deadline. And in my opinion, if you're the Bears, you're either going to extend this guy or you're going to trade him. I don't think you're going to want to let him get to free agency. I can't imagine they would want to get to that point and start talking. At that point, you start talking about the franchise tag. I would think that either we're going to get a deal here in the next few days, or he's going to be on his way out.
Really?
I would think so. That's my opinion. Certainly, Jalen sounds like he's open to any of those possibilities. Talking to him yesterday, I mean, he's not dumb. He knows what's going on. He saw what happened with Roquan Smith last year, and somebody asked him flat out, like, what do you want? And obviously the answer is money. But he believes that he should be paid among the highest paid cornerbacks, and we don't. We hear his side of the story. We don't know what the Bears believe he's worth. But if an extension was going to get done, wouldn't you think it would have been done at this point? I don't know, man.
Depends on what he's asking for, I guess, right?
It does.
I mean, is he looking to reset the cornerback market? Is he looking to be the top paid cornerback? Is he looking to be among the top 5? I mean, because I believe he deserves to be among the top 5. You look at all the underlying statistics, they point to him being a top 5 cornerback in the league. He's earned that money.
I agree. I don't think he is a reset the market type cornerback. I don't know if he's number one. He's not going to get the type of deal that's going to like totally eclipse what every cornerback's ever been paid. And whether it's fair or not, I mean, the turnover numbers matter, and they're not there for him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
But as far as like a coverage corner, a guy who can annoy your top receiver, I mean, he's one of the best out there. And I think any team would be willing, these teams, they all see the tape, and the coaches know, they spend a lot more time looking at the tape than they do at the stat line.
Mike says Jalen Johnson is the number 1 graded coverage corner by Pro Football Focus this year, for whatever that's worth. Yeah, he's been outstanding. On the other side, let's say, I think the main focus has been about players that the Bears could trade away. As we've gotten near the trade deadline, I've seen some rumbles about some players that the Bears could acquire, particularly coming out of Washington. Like you look at Chase Young.
Yeah, everyone's talking about Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense, right?
It does.
What are your thoughts on making a trade for one of those guys?
I do think the conversation makes sense. If those guys are available, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, you pick up the phone, see what they're asking for. I don't think you want to give up either your first round draft picks. Maybe if you can get Montez Sweat for a 2 or something like that, you can have that conversation. He's 27. That's not old, of course, but it's you're going to have to pay him. He's produced. He's had, pretty good numbers, anywhere from 8 to 10 sacks a season, something like that. I was looking at that yesterday. It's certainly a conversation worth having. I think it kind of comes down to what Ryan Poles sees. Is there going to be opportunities in free agency? Is there going to be an elite pass rusher in the draft? I think all that matters when you're throwing this into the equation too.
If I'm the Bears, I guess if I'm Ryan Poles, I would not be willing to give up draft assets for where this team is. Jake, you're shaking your head, yeah?
Yeah, I agree. I think I know it's a separate situation, separate deal, but I think the Chase Claypool thing, like, it's a little bit of a cautionary tale. Like, why is this guy available? Like, you have to start asking yourself these questions. Why is this guy available? Why do they want to get rid of him if he's effective? And then you add in the draft capital part of it, and obviously the Bears got burned on that. So I wouldn't be willing to give up any significant draft capital and roll the dice with the 5-year, 4-year player option kind of thing down the line.
Yeah, and I don't think that Washington is going to be able to resign both Sweat and Chase Young anyway. So I'd rather let them figure it out, and then whichever one makes it to free agency, if you're interested, target them then. I don't think giving up draft capital to then have to pay someone is a great strategy.
I mean, if you're going to do that, it's got to be a really elite player. I mean, that's got to be the Khalil Max like we saw back in 2018. Because you're talking about, like, that's tying yourself two different ways. Tying your hands two different ways with the draft capital and the huge contract that it's going to take to keep him here. You're not going to make that deal if you don't see this guy being with your team long term. I agree with what you guys are saying. I don't think the Bears should do that. I understand why fans would want to improve this pass rush as soon as possible, because it's been hard to watch the last year and a half. But I would be surprised if they wind up doing a move like that at this point, especially with where this team is at. I mean, I know you're coming off a win. You feel like maybe you can get a couple more wins here down the stretch, but they're not going to be contending. I would be shocked if they get back in that conversation.
Plus, too, I mean, there's just the variables that we're not aware of, in terms of the medicals and all the other behind the scenes conversations that these people pour over, in those meetings. What do those look like? I mean, Chase Young, right, with the ACL, do you have long term confidence that he's still going to be an effective player 2, 3, 4 years down the line? Those are conversations that Ryan Poles is having with his staff.
Actually, I've not paid a ton of attention to, like, who are the top, like, trade rumors here.
Those two guys are definitely at the top of the conversation.
So those guys I know are there. Anyone else?
Well, I mean, there has been talk about Devontae Adams, but now it sounds like the Raiders are leaning towards just keeping staying in pat and trying to get Jimmy G healthy and going with that thing. I don't know how wise that is, but that's kind of he was in the conversation last week. I think Jalen Johnson is definitely up there. I've seen lots of articles and chatter about Derrick Henry. I don't know how real that is.
Yeah, Mike just brought it up. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley.
I don't see Saquon getting moved.
That one was it. No. I would. It seems to me it would seem more likely that Derrick Henry would get moved than Saquon.
Yeah,
just given where the teams are. But
here's the name. I'm looking at the Sporting News right now. I just pulled up just kind of looking. Daniel Hunter.
For Minnesota,
yeah. Daniel Hunter.
That's another interesting one.
Brian Burns down in Carolina, edge rusher, only 25 years old. Yeah, that's not a bad one either. And then the other, and this isn't a Bears pick, but a couple names that I really like that do need to get out of Denver: Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. Those poor guys got to get out of that offense.
Yeah, they do. I mean, Jerry Jeudy's production has not been great this season, and but you look at, like, he's so explosive. He's a guy who can make plays for a contending team. You just got to get him out of Denver.
I love both of those receivers. I also
Tim Patrick is really good.
Yeah, Tim Patrick, another guy out in Denver at wide receiver that I really like. He just can't ever stay on the field.
Yeah.
They got some talent there. It just doesn't look right.
Yeah, Denver will be a team to watch as the deadline, as Tuesday's deadline gets closer, because obviously they're well out of it, and they have some names they could move.
Sean Payton has talked openly when he wasn't a coach. He was talking last year. I can't remember what show it was, about tanking for Caleb Williams. So he's had that thought. Don't kid yourself.
It was on Cowherd.
It was on Cowherd. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're out of it. I definitely see Denver as a team that could be aggressive at the trade deadline to unload some talent. Another guy out there, I think Justin Simmons, safety. He could be a guy that they move too. Mark asks the question down there. Do you think Fields is moved? No.
I don't.
Nope.
I don't. I wrote an art, check. I did a trade deadline article at shawlocal.com. If you guys want to check it out, I talked about, a handful of Bears players who I felt like could potentially be moved. I did not have Justin Fields on that list. I don't see that happening. I mean, if they did want to trade him, you're going to give him the 5th-year option and have that conversation later. I don't think they have to do it now.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, guys, we're at 40 minutes. We got to get out of here. Let's go through though, Sean. Or you know what, Jake? I'll start with you here. Let's give us a pick and some thoughts on this game.
Well, last week, I picked the Raiders, and I just kind of figured the Bears would find a way to screw it up, and sure enough, they win, 30 to whatever it was. I still believe I'm going to go with the Chargers. I just think Justin Herbert is really good, even with a suspect defense, and Bears on the road, Chargers.
Sean, how about you?
Guys, I haven't picked the Bears all season, and I was obviously wrong last week. I'm gonna go a complete curveball here, and I'm gonna say the Bears win this game. I think it could be high scoring. I think it's going to be like 28-24, and I think the heat is going to really be on Brandon Staley after this week if that happens.
The heat should always be on Brandon Staley.
It already is, but this might be if they lose to the Bears, this might be the final straw.
Holy hell, is Brandon Staley bad at this? Yeah,
it would be the most Chargers thing to lose, this game.
It would be very Chargers to lose this game on national TV, Sunday Night Football. With that being said, I can't take the Bears on the road against the Chargers. The Chargers have so much more talent than this Bears roster does.
It's practically a home game out there in LA.
Yeah, that's true. I think like Chargers 27-21, something like that is probably what we're going to end up with here. If the Bears are in the game, you know what? I don't really know what to make of the offense with Tyson Bagent there. So there's not really a lot I feel like I'm going to learn from that. I just want to see the defense have another good game against a quality offense. If they continue to progress, there was a question earlier we didn't get to asking about, if Matt Eberflus deserves credit for the improvement of the defense since Alan Williams' departure. And I would say, yeah, absolutely. Matt Eberflus absolutely deserves credit for getting this defense. You look back to the first few weeks of the season, I thought this defense was going to be an absolute train wreck. So the fact that they're playing competent football without really getting home to the quarterback is, it's a really good sign for
I think you have to put, the well-timed blitzes that we've seen in recent weeks. I mean, that's on Eberflus. They've done a really good job with that. Another thing too that you can't overlook is health. I mean, they've gotten healthy. Remember, Tremaine Edmonds missed much of training camp. DeMarcus Walker missed much of training camp. Those guys have clearly gotten back into the flow. And obviously you got Jalen Johnson back and some of those guys in the secondary.
And TJ Edwards, while still hasn't been phenomenal, has played much better over the second month of the season compared to that first month. Doing much better against the run. So positive signs there. But all right, we're going to go ahead and sign off, guys. Appreciate everyone who joined us live this morning. Make sure you stick to shawlocal.com. We'll have full coverage of Bears, Chargers. Sean heading out to LA pretty soon. Jake Barrelson working behind the scenes and joining us live. Thank you, Jake. For now, like I said, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Everyone have a good weekend watching some football. We'll be back to talk with you guys on Monday. Later.